Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Exxon Mobil CEO Darren on Saturday said the problem statement that countries need to focus on at the COP28 climate summit is reducing emissions, in contrast to calls for a collective commitment to phase out all fossil fuels. For many at the summit, which is being held in the United Arab Emirates, COP28 can only be recognized as a success if it results in a deal to phase out all fossil fuels, whose burning is the chief driver of the climate crisis. The language of the final agreement, expected by or around the December 12 end of the conference, will be closely monitored. A phase-out commitment would likely require a shift away from fossil fuels until their use is eliminated, while a phase-down could indicate a reduction in their use, but not an absolute end. There's also an ongoing debate about whether an agreement should center on abated fossil fuels, which are trapped and stocked with carbon capture and storage technologies, or unabated fossil fuels, which are largely understood to be produced and used without substantial reductions in the amount of emitted greenhouse gases. Asked by CNBC's Steve Sedgwick at COP28 whether it would be the wrong scenario for countries to agree to the phase-out of abated fossil fuels, Woods replied, "I think what society ought to focus on is the true problem here, which is emissions. The challenge here is eliminating emissions," he continued. "How we do that will be a function of where the technology goes, and what the circumstances are, and where those emissions are being emitted." In a speech delivered to world leaders on Friday, UN Secretary-General António Guterres was unequivocal in his call for the burning of fossil fuels to be stopped outright, in order to prevent the worst effects of the climate crisis. "We cannot save a burning planet with a firehose of fossil fuels," Guterres said. "The 1.5-degree limit is only possible if we ultimately stop burning all fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, phase out, with a clear time frame aligned with 1.5 degrees. Not everyone is on board with calls to phase out fossil fuels, however. Russia has previously said it would oppose this language being used in the final agreement, while COP28 host the United Arab Emirates has instead signaled its preference for a phase down. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all. I actually think that part of the thing that has slowed us down is this focus on making a step change and getting out of our existing energy system and starting something brand new. That is going to be a long, costly process that is going to be very, very expensive," Exxon Mobil's Wood said. "Instead, what we ought to be looking at is how do we get from where we're at today to a future with lower emissions, and that involves step changes in some areas. It certainly involves wind, solar and electric vehicles, but it also involves decarbonizing what we currently have."